The wind carried the scent of pine and damp earth as Mike Dawson stood outside Hope Haven Rescue, staring at the faded wooden sign swaying in the breeze, his hands clenched into fists in his jacket pockets, the familiar weight of anxiety pressing against his chest. He wasn't sure why he came back here, why he agreed to meet Sarah after all these years. But deep down, he knew. He needed something, anything, to pull him out of the darkness that had followed him home from Afghanistan. And Sarah had always been the one to believe in second chances. Inside, the shelter smelled of damp fur and disinfectant. The barking of restless dogs echoed through the cramped hallway as Sarah emerged from the back, wiping her hands on a rag. "Mike," she said, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "You actually showed up." Mike shifted awkwardly. "Yeah, figured it couldn't hurt." Sarah eyed him knowingly. "Couldn't hurt? Last time I saw you, you were holed up in that cabin of yours, refusing to answer calls." Mike sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, well, figured I should try something different." She didn't press further, and for that, he was grateful. Instead, she motioned to the kennels. "Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." In the far corner of the shelter, lying curled up in a cage, was Tank, a scarred, trembling pit bull with eyes that mirrored Mike's own. "He's been through a lot," Sarah said softly. "Rescued from a fighting ring, doesn't trust people easily." Mike crouched down, locking eyes with the dog. Tank stared back, ears pinned low, body tense with fear. Mike understood that feeling all too well. "Hey, buddy," he murmured. "I get it. The world's a scary place." He didn't expect much, but Tank inched forward, sniffing his outstretched hand. Mike felt something stir inside him, something he thought he'd lost long ago. Sarah watched quietly. "Why don't you stick around for a while? See if he warms up to you." Mike hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think I will." Days turned into weeks. Mike found himself showing up at the shelter more often, spending hours with Tank, slowly earning the dog's trust. The first time Tank let him place a hand on his head without flinching, something inside Mike cracked open. Sarah noticed the change in him. "You know, you're pretty good with him," she said one afternoon, leaning against the kennel. Mike shrugged. "He's like me, a little broken, a little lost." Sarah's expression softened. "Then maybe you're exactly what he needs." One evening, Mike was finishing up cleaning when the shelter's front door creaked open. In walked Noah, Carlos, and Jenna, his old unit buddies. Sarah must have called them. He wasn't sure if he was grateful or pissed. "Well, look at you," Noah smirked. "Dog whisperer now?" Mike chuckled, shaking his head. "Just giving it a shot." Carlos glanced around the shelter. "You know, we could use something like this." Jenna nodded. "Yeah, some place to focus on something other than everything else." Mike looked at Tank, who was now sitting calmly by his side, tail thumping against the floor. Maybe they all needed this place more than they realized. Together, the veterans threw themselves into rescue work. They tackled difficult cases, dogs abandoned in alleys, animals chained up in condemned houses. Each rescue felt like a mission, giving them a sense of purpose they hadn't felt since leaving the service. They worked seamlessly, falling back into the camaraderie they thought they'd lost. Jenna used her logistics skills to organize resources. Carlos handled medical care, and Noah was just happy to break down doors when needed. Mike focused on Tank, working with the dog every day, showing him that not all humans were bad. Slowly, Tank learned to trust again, and in return, Mike found himself healing too. But not everyone supported what they were doing. Late one night, a group of men showed up at the shelter, the same men running illegal dog fights in the area. They warned Mike and the others to stay out of their business. Noah cracked his knuckles. "We didn't come back from war just to back down from some scumbags." Mike felt the anger boiling inside him, but took a deep breath. "We'll do this the right way." And so they gathered evidence, contacted authorities, and set up surveillance, determined to shut down the operation legally. The night the raid finally happened, they were there, watching from a distance as the dogs were rescued and their abusers were arrested. It was a victory, but Mike knew their work was far from over. Despite their success, the shelter itself was struggling. Bills piled up, and the threat of eviction loomed over them. "We need a fundraiser," Sarah said, staring at the numbers on her desk. Mike hesitated. I'm not exactly good at asking for help." "You're not doing it for yourself," she reminded him. "You're doing it for them." With that, Mike and his team got to work, organizing events, reaching out to the community, sharing their stories. The town responded, touched by their mission to give both animals and veterans a second chance. On the night of the fundraiser, the shelter was packed. Stories were shared, laughter echoed, and for the first time in a long time, Mike felt hope. In the end, they raised enough to keep the shelter running. But more than that, they had built something. Mike officially adopted Tank, and together they worked to train rescued dogs to become therapy animals for other veterans. Carlos started a medical outreach program for pets in need, and Jenna helped bring in more volunteers. Standing outside the shelter one evening, Mike watched the sun set, Tank sitting at his feet. Sarah joined him, nudging his arm. "I think we did good, huh?" He smiled. "Yeah, we did." As the dogs played in the yard, Mike realized something important. He hadn't just saved Tank, Tank had saved him too. Sometimes second chances come when you least expect them, and sometimes they come with 4 legs and a wagging tail.